From the Gillette Soccer Complex's Field 1 in Wilson, North Carolina, it is the U.S. Boys Youth Soccer National League Series. Hello, everyone. I'm Marky Bilson giving you the second game of our Turbo Sports Network broadcast here from Field 1, featuring ECU 98-99 Maroon from Elkhart, Indiana, against Baltimore, Maryland's Baltimore Celtic 98-99, a pair of 17 and under teams. Today's game features two teams that are so far undefeated, as the boys from Indiana lost to, I am incorrect. Both teams are winless. Well, there's a big difference between that, certainly. The boys from Indiana lost to Houston Express 1-0 in their first game of the tournament, although I am told by their manager, Myron Cross, that, boy, we dominated them. Meanwhile, the players from Maryland, they had a 1-1 tie with Sporting St. Croix Academy in their first game yesterday. Well, the players from Baltimore, and they do go by the Baltimore Celtics, and so their names are written across the front of their shirts. It's rather self-explanatory. They're going to be wearing the dark uniforms. They're going to be wearing the black with some green trim. Meanwhile, black and white uniforms for the team called Maroon. Naturally, that makes a lot of sense. But the Hoosiers will be in the lighter color uniforms. Could that be an advantage today? Well, you can always wonder that. I always used to wonder when, for instance, the Steelers had a lot of trouble beating the Miami Dolphins in the Orange Bowl back in a previous generation, if part of the reason might not have been because the Steelers were always wearing darker jerseys, whereas the Dolphins were wearing lighter ones in the Florida heat. It is not a hot day today, but we are having some pleasant weather here in the middle of December in Wilson, North Carolina, which is in the vicinity of Raleigh, certainly a little close to Rocky Mountain if you're not quite that familiar. Right now it is 66 and sunny. I won't say there isn't a cloud in the sky, but they're about the most unthreatening clouds you've ever seen in your entire life. So we're about ready to kick off here for our noontime game, 45-minute periods. We're underway as the Celtics from Baltimore, no, not Boston, they're the ones who get the initial possession. Starting goalkeepers today, and both these teams employ two goalkeepers. Joshua Gorball is in net for ECU, the players from Elkhart, Indiana, and it is Nicholas Deshawn in net for the Baltimore Celtics. They're the ones with the ball. They're the ones shooting on Gorball. 45-minute halves, and we're just underway. Both these teams appear to be very tall, so you could have a lot of headers today. Well, I guess to have headers whatever height you are having players from, but nevertheless, it's Gorball. Now, they might change goalkeepers today, I'm told, in the second half. We'll find out a little bit more about that as time goes by. What can I tell you about this game? What can I tell you about the U.S. Youth Soccer National League? Well, as we allow the play to speak for itself for a little bit, the U.S. Youth Soccer National League games this week are kicking off the 2015-16 season. And following these games played in North Carolina, teams will continue league play in Orlando and Las Vegas. Kind of different cultures there than Wilson, don't you think? National League teams are comprised of the top 80 boys teams from across the country. Teams in the National League have earned their place in the league based on success in U.S. Youth Soccer regional and national events. The National League sets itself apart from other leagues based on the meaningful matches of these tournaments, and we've seen, for the most part, competitive games in both the male and the female action. Last week, the young women were here, and most of the games were very competitive, quite thrilling. One game featured a tie game in which both teams exchanged goals in the final 2 minutes of the game, if memory serves. But in addition to playing in front of some of the top scouts in the country, teams are playing to earn a berth to the 2016 U.S. Youth Soccer National Championships in Frisco. Many National League alumni have gone on to play in such prestigious competitions as the NCAA College Cup, the MLS, NWSL, UEFA Champions League, and of course the FIFA World Cup. And North Carolina has been unseasonably warm. And now, one of the things we were discussing, the producers and I were discussing before the game, and they were pointing this out to me, is look at the pitch. Look at the brown of the field. It is not a quote-unquote muddy field. There's been a little bit of rain in the days prior to today. Not a cloud in the sky. Well, a cloud in the sky, but a 0% chance of rain is what the weatherman says now. And as I tell you this, it's important to note, though, that look at the field, especially on this side of the field, the left side on your computer screen. You're having a circumstance where you can see the field, although what grass is there is green, thanks to the irrigation and the warm weather. There's still a lot of dirt showing, so as this ball goes out of bounds in the early stages of the game, you might see a circumstance where some of the footing is a little bit treacherous. And I think in the first game that was played on this field, not only a few minutes ago, perhaps 20 minutes ago, it was a 2-1 advantage, but 2 of the goals were scored on penalty kicks, and you kind of got the feeling of that. Kicking the ball away there for the Maroons was Keegan Shiflett. He was shifting possession and the ball away from the front of the net for his keeper or ball. Now, if you want to know more about this tournament, if you're not quite, and I know many of the viewers are actually parents and friends, so they are aware, but you've got more than an hour and a half to kill, perhaps during the half, or even if the game gets a little bit of a lull, why don't you go on the other screen and check out USYouthsoccer.org. And you can find out about these two teams, the black-clad Baltimore Celtics and the Hoosiers. ECU Maroon, not wearing maroon, but a white-clad team with black trim as the ball goes over the net. Find out what they're up to. Both teams looking for their first victory of the young tournament. We'll be here with you tomorrow, too, to check out some of the action, although I don't believe these two teams, in fact, I know these two teams won't be playing on Field 1. I know Myron Cross of the Elkhart, Indiana team was extremely happy of being in this tournament. And remember, the National League is about the 80 best teams, and he mentioned this is the first time we've been in this tournament, the first time we've been in the National League. We're a smaller team, but this is a significant step for our program. Long shot. It goes in through the traffic. Baltimore scores thanks to Jacob Friedlander. A long shot, a rolling, almost a ground ball, if you will. Apologize for a baseball term. From beyond the 18-yard box. That ball probably taken from more than 20 feet, or 20 yards, excuse me, 20 yards. Obviously more than 20 feet as well. And a 1-0 Baltimore advantage here in the very early going. I've got that goal scored about 6.5 minutes into the game. And Baltimore has dominated possession time in the early going, but here comes Indiana. Shiflett didn't have good positioning, but he was able to get the ball out of his own end. Here's Shiflett again. Shiflett trying to center, but nobody there as Baltimore's number 5, that's Christopher McDonald, knocked it away. So Baltimore has a chance to extend their 1-0 advantage. They said Baltimore has a bit of a height advantage here in this game. Bright sunny day, I have to wear a baseball cap. Keep the sun out of my eyes here as I call the game from the field. We don't have a tower or a press box, but rather I'm observing much like a sideline reporter would in American football. Trying to identify some of the players for you. And that's Jonathan Molina. Molina wearing number 11 today. Previously had worn 21, I'm told. Baltimore has a deep team. Now one player is out for them due to injury. That's Christopher DiMartino. I had mentioned Molina. Molina actually scored the 1 goal Baltimore had in Sporting St. Croix Academy. Now, both these teams started out in a 4-4-3. So that lends itself to some offense. One of the taller players on the pitch is Dominic Duncan. Duncan, who you'll recognize from his, not only his height, but his unique haircut. They still call those a mohawk. It's kind of a thick one, and some of the other hair is filled in, obviously, for number 7. But he strikes a commanding presence as Dom Duncan, and, well, he's going to Loyola of Maryland. And, in fact, one of the assistant coaches is wearing a Loyola Greyhounds shirt. Shiflett is trying to get the ball back, falling down for the Celtics from Baltimore. The Baltimore Celtics. Well, Red Auerbach was a resident of Washington, D.C. for as long as he was alive, even when he was coaching and being the general manager of the Celtics. Nevertheless, it is the Loyola product Duncan who's going to be taking this kick and trying to extend Maryland's 1-0 lead. The kick is taken by the keeper. So Gorball making the save. I have a 2-0 shot on goal advantage for the Celtics. By the way, the player that had been knocked down and created some of that kick in the first place was Michael Osei-Wusu. Osei-Wusu, spelled O-S-E-I, the strikers, along with Jonathan Molina and Dominic Duncan. Jacob Friedlander with the 1 goal in this game. substitutions. Tello is coming out for the Celtics. Coming in will be Gabriel Quintero. Meanwhile,
hey, Jonathan, well done, kid. That's the way to win that ball, man. Hey, Dom.
for Elkhart,
Come out of it. Come on.
I see coming out of the game here is Javier Vieira. I'm briefly looking a chance to see who the new player is. And I'm going to give some credit to Matthew Granitz, I think. Now Elkhart down 2-0. As I said, this is the first time as Alex Rosales kicks it into the Celtics end. And really, this is one of the first times that their keeper has been touching the ball. That's Nicholas Deshawn. And his long kick giving his team with a 2-0 advantage. Here's one of the guys that have buried the goals, Duncan, who just scored his first goal of this tournament, kicking it back. Maryland, you figure, will want to maybe hold on to the ball just a little bit more. Another sub is going to be made for Elkhart, Indiana. Nice play there to get the ball to the center of the field. Long attempt at a shot, and it goes back to the front. And to the side, an attempt to set up a header, but instead it's cleared by the defenders of Elkhart. Some subs are going to come in for Elkhart, down 2-0, here at the midpoint of the first half. Look for Mason Cross as well as Juan Castaneda to come in. We'll see who they replace in just a minute. The whistle blows. And an attempt to go in. I believe it did. Yet another goal for Maryland, for the Baltimore Celtics. This one, and I'm trying to determine the player that scored it here. I can't see his number. Sitting up in front of the net, takes a crossing pattern in, and really no chance right there for the keeper.
Brandon.
Was that Gabriel Quintero on the goal? I believe it was Quintero. Coming in down 3-0 here in the relatively early going, Christian Saley comes in. Meanwhile, coming out is Brandon Stahl. So the Celtics up 3-0. And for the time being, I'm giving credit to that goal to Quintero, which would be his first, and we're going to have a new sub.
Hey, Belino.
Two players about ready to come in for Maryland, up 3-0. We'll see a long kick here by Gorball, who's had 2 saves and 3 goals against him. And coming out now is Duncan, perhaps the best player on the Baltimore Celtics, and also coming out a player who scored the first goal of the tournament for the Celtics, Baltimore's Jonathan Molina. 17 and under, 3-0. Baltimore with the lead over Elkhart, Indiana. And an attempt here to get the ball up, but this one might be costly, having to get back into position. Oh, a nice save, knocking the ball away by the Elkhart defense. And that one saved Gorball, who might not have been in position to make a save there. Corner kick coming up. Perhaps an opportunity for the Baltimore Celtics to take a 3-0 advantage. Less than 20 minutes to play in the first half. Here comes the corner kick. It's a low one, and Elkhart's able to cover. Getting it back to the kicker. Nice defense there. Nick Binkley, and before it, Logan Wise. But still, Maryland dominating their possession time. Nice footwork there to keep possession by Daniel Hart, but ultimately the ball goes over the net. Three 0 in favor of the Baltimore Celtics. Goals by Friedlander. Duncan no longer in the game, and we believe Quintero. If there is a, I want to get the clarification. Now we'll have a substitution. I don't know if you heard that. It took place right in front of me. Trevor Piazza will be coming in, and it appears that Keegan Shiflett will be coming out. Marcos Hernandez will also be coming in. And for the remainder of the first half, it'll be Alex Rosales, excuse me. He'll be taking a rest. Rosales takes a rest. Meanwhile, the Celtics will also make a change very shortly, but one of the new troops, having the ball taken away from, but they still are able to manage. I was going to say they were able to manage to prevent some field position, but that's inaccurate. And wasting no time, well, there's no chance for a sub right there. A whistle blows after it was Kyle Hennigan throwing the ball in. And now a couple of, well, another change, a single change, I should say. This is Drew Green coming in for Baltimore. And it looks like Daniel Hart is coming out. In fact, he is. At halftime, I'll get the absolute confirmation of the third goal scored by Baltimore. Here's a chance at the fourth, but the shot goes over the net. The National League, Boys U.S. Youth Soccer Select Play. We're in Wilson, North Carolina. The Gillette Complex has 4 fields. We're about a third of the way through the game now. And the ball goes out of bounds. Juan Castagnata couldn't keep it in, throwing it in here. is a number 3 for Baltimore. Trevor Piazza, excuse me, that was incorrect on the player that could not keep it in. I was looking at the wrong roster, but it is Piazza who threw it in. But we have a whistle now. We're going to have a kick by the lads from Elkhart, Indiana, who are looking to slice into a 3-0 lead for Baltimore's Celtics. 17 under game here. This is about as much possession time as Indiana has had all game long. So we're in our final 15 minutes of the period. About a 10-minute halftime. Launching this one, but it will go, well, they're going to keep it in bounds on the far side, not for long, though. Zachary Grew was the final Elkhart player to have the ball. It looks like now the Celtics will be using, well, Nicholas Steiner is fetching it. I've said this a lot. We're in North Carolina. When you think of North Carolina, you think of hills and you think of woods. And perhaps you can see the wooded hills beyond Field 1 here at the Gillette Soccer Complex. Many of the leaves off the trees. Of course, it's the Carolina, so there's no shortage of pine trees, perhaps not as many as in South Carolina or, for that matter, Georgia. But it's still the Carolinas. You can see many of the evergreens on the other side of the field when the camera has a wide shot. And so what we saw just a couple of minutes ago was the ball rolling down the hill and going into the woods. Now, the way the field is set up, and it's not been I think, is it a major factor? I don't know, but sometimes some time can be lost when you're just trying to retrieve the ball when it goes out of bounds on the far side. And with Elkhart trying to come back from a 3-0 deficit, that's something to think about. Fine athletic play right there by number 27, Michael Osei-Wusu. Michael Osei-Wusu with wearing number 27. The tall player wearing the orange shoes for the Celtics. Long shot will go wide. The starting goalkeeper, Joshua Gorball, who has faced what I have as 5 shots and 3 have gone in. I have a 5-0 advantage for the Celtics and the shot on goal. It may be, that is unofficial, however. Keeping it from my head. And unofficially, we're going to have another substitution for Baltimore, but what do they call it? Charm City? Looks like Dylan Kidd's coming in, and coming out, Jacob Dennison. Fresher legs here. Kick goes out of bounds. You can tell both of these coaches in the early part of this game, I must say, well, certainly competitive, but also a little bit classy, I would say. Here's a nice opportunity, but the shot, oh, off the back of a Maryland player's, off the back of an Indiana player's spike. That Indiana player, by the way, that kicked it backwards, not really realizing it was Nathan Bliley. He wears number 6. We're approaching the final stages of the first half, 3-0 Maryland. Less than 10 minutes left, plus whatever extra time to when one considers the scoring and such. So a lot of time for Indiana to come back, but they need the ball, and the Celtics have dominated possession time. Indiana a little bit better in some of the recent minutes, but it's just like this. Here the ball is going to go out of bounds, and it's in their own end, and Baltimore's Michael Osewasu is going to throw it in. Now with a 3-0 lead, he's going to take his time. In fact, that ball has gone almost all the way to field 2. As I am looking, and I don't know if you can see me on one of the cameras. I know we have 2 cameras here. But 4 fields here at the Gillette Complex. We are on field 1, which is the one that is probably the most scenic if you want to get right down to it. 2 and 3 are surrounded by other soccer fields, and you can call it the beautiful game all you want, but when you have the wooded scenery beyond the field and that sort of North Carolina state of mind of soccer where the ball goes down the hill and into the woods. Who would have thought that retrieving a soccer ball would feel like Barney Google meeting Snuffy Smith? Well, maybe not quite that. Piazza was attempting to be the spark plug for Elkhart, but his kick went wide. He couldn't set up something in front of the net. Dishon is yet to face a shot on goal. Got it 5-0. And one of the Celtics players almost, I thought he was going to do a push-up there. Keeling, I shouldn't say Keeling, but Kyle Hennigan went on to a position almost like, I think he gets some extra wind into his lungs. Oftentimes, you see hockey players do this a lot when you sort of put your hands on your knees and, you know, your torso a bit more level with the ground. You can actually get more air into your lungs in that position. And so I'm wondering if that wasn't what Hennigan was trying to do at that point. Elkhart will maintain possession as Christian Saley lost, who wears number 9, his footing. We've got less than 5 minutes remaining in the half. We'll have another sub for Maryland to keep the troops fresh. Elkhart getting a more possession time, but still trailing 3-0. Nick Binkley is 13, but he couldn't keep possession in his own end. We're now sort of in the center of the field in terms of field position. Despite the fact that they are playing on the more torn-up pitch, the Celtics have the 3-0 advantage. goals, and these are unofficial. I will verify them, but goals, I have them by Friedlander. And a sub here as USYS comes out and comes in. David Caesar for the Baltimore Celtics, but Caesar will attempt to, well, he doesn't quite get the ball, but he's in the vicinity of the action. As thought potentially a long shot attempt, but nothing there. Good defense here by Elkhart, Indiana. Ball goes to the corner, and it looks like this one's going out of bounds, so we'll have a kick in as the Celtics try to extend their 3-0 advantage. Throwing the ball in front of the center of the net, and Elkhart will kick it out. One last attempt for a run. Perhaps I shouldn't say last in this period. I've got unofficially trying to keep into consideration for extra time about 2.5 minutes unofficially. I cannot see the time that you see unofficially on your computer screen from my vantage. I have to let you know that. I'm not aware of what shot is being shown, and I don't mean to make excuses, but if it seems like it may be a little out of sync or so in the commentary and such, I do ask that you bear with us, and that's one of the reasons why I don't. But that's why, for instance, as I'm keeping my own time, and of course it's unofficial, but it's an estimate, so I can't imagine it would be exactly lined up to the millisecond with what you see on your screen. We'll try to give you an idea. I actually was pretty good at it this time. I remember to turn the stopwatch on when we started kicking off, but what extra time comes about because of Maryland's 3 goals today, I don't know. I was going to tell you who had the goals. We had first, it was Jacob Friedlander, and it was early on in the game he scored that goal, and it was a shot that wasn't particularly promising. It was a ground ball that went through a field of players, and I think, as you see right there, and I'm going to call that a shot on goal, as it is the 3rd save for Gorball, and I have 6 shots on goal overall now for Maryland. That is very unofficial. I have a 6-0 shot on goal advantage. But the shot basically went through many players. It sort of had eyes, as they like to say, in baseball. The ground ball had eyes, and it went past, say the pitcher and 2 infielders. It was kind of that way, scored from, I'm going to estimate, about 23 yards out in front of the net. And what I think is because there were so many players, Gorball just couldn't see the ball very well, and it went past him. Then Duncan, the Loyola Maryland commit, Dominic Duncan scored. As the play goes right in front of me. And that is going to do it for the first half. And just completing, I had told you that it was Friedlander early, Duncan a little bit later, and then unofficially, and we will get clarification of this, Gabriel Quintero with the 3rd goal, but I will get official, that is unofficial right there. What is official is a score. 3-0. Baltimore Celtic 98-99. 3 ECU 98-99 Maroon from Elkhart, Indiana. Nothing. We're at halftime. 10-minute break here on the Turbo Sports Network. North Carolina, where in this game of 17 and under boys soccer players in the National League U.S. Youth Soccer Select Tournament here in Wilson, North Carolina, the Maryland Celtics with a 3-0 advantage against ECU 98-99 Maroon. Now, they're not wearing maroon, but they are the team from Elkhart, Indiana, clad in white tops with black trim. Again, a 3-0 score, and let's get the clarification. I was correct. Gabriel Quintero did score the third goal off kick, a side kick, if you will, in the first half. Baltimore has basically dominated the possession time. In fact, I do not have a shot on goal. And here we see a fourth goal scored by the Celtics as the Joshua Gorball allowing his fourth goal. Gorball has come back to man the net in the second half, and I'm trying to find out and seeing the number of the player who just buried that goal for the Celtics. Jacob Dennison actually was the player. Dennison, born in 1998 on October 13th. And the ball goes to midfield, where the whistle blows and the play is stopped. Weather getting warmer. We could get temperatures up to 70 degrees here in Wilson. My weather report said 68 was the scheduled high. It was 66 at the kickoff. It is now the early afternoon. And officially, let me get the temperature here for you. They say 68 degrees. There is no wind. None that, they say a 6 mile an hour west to southwest wind, and maybe I'll buy a 6 mile an hour wind. I don't know. It's not a factor. Let's put it that way. What else would you like to know? The very visible here. No chance of rain. Humidity 63. In other words, a lovely day here in the southern United States. Wilson, North Carolina, located in the vicinity of Raleigh is basically the best way to put it. So 4-0. I have 7 goals. This is a new goalkeeper you see with the ball. The winning team has put Alexander Harper in, and this will be really, perhaps this punt is the most active we've seen the Celtics goaltender today, unless you want to count that one, and I am unofficially keeping shots, but I have a 7-0 advantage as Duncan, the Loyola Maryland product, and covering up there was Joshua Gorball. There was some talk that Mason Short might play the second half, but it doesn't appear that that's going to be the case right now. This is Duncan. Duncan going out to the right wing, a pop-up shot, and that's a nice save right there that I'll call the 8th shot on goal by the keeper, Gorball, Joshua Gorball. He'll turn 16 next month. So the youngest player, well, check that. Actually, Christian Saley is about a month younger. But it's a 17 and under team, and you've got a 15-year-old goalie. So that should say something about his talents. Admittedly, I was told before the game, and this is Duncan again, who is the only player on the 17 and under game that has made a college commitment, going to Loyola, as we've mentioned before, in Maryland. The Greyhounds. But as I also want to point out, This is a team in Elkhart. They're in their first really competitions in the National League. They are 0-1. They lost to Houston Express in a game that their manager told me was highly competitive, and they felt that they should have won. He said that he felt that they were the better of the two teams. Of course, coaches say that a lot, but nevertheless. And you could tell when Baltimore came out that this was something special with very tall athletes, and they have dominated the possession time. Now, these two teams began in a 4-3-3 formation, and you get the sense, and in fact, that's what Elkhart is in right now, but would they attempt something different as this ball goes wide? Would they attempt something different at some other point just for better possession times with another midfielder or so? Would they try something of that nature as time went by? That would seem to potentially limit the amount of shots taken, but really they haven't had a shot on goal yet. 4-0 Baltimore Celtics over Elkhart, Indiana, ECU. And now another kick. This one taken by Harper. Mentioned earlier that there were many college scouts here. I've counted at halftime 5 college scouts watching this game, most of them scouting Baltimore, I would imagine, when I tell you the location of the team, and also that it's the Baltimore Celtics. That would explain, for instance, the presence of Notre Dame. But also Navy, North Carolina Wesleyan decided to stop by, and who can blame them? Oberlin, and the other college that I saw represented was Mercer. Southern Conference team in Macon, Georgia. Ball goes out of bounds. And another save there by Gorball, reaching into the air. The officials today, referee is Jordan Davis, senior assistant Alex Tensey. The junior assistant is Ryan Schilling, and the fourth official is Tom Shapowski. Pass to no one in particular there from number 3, Trevor Piazza. You can sense with the score, 4-0 Maryland. Maybe a little bit of, shall we say, complacency. And again, Gorball in the play of action. Ball goes down the hill. We'll be rapidly coming to about the 2/3 mark of the game, 4-0 Maryland, or the Baltimore Celtics if you prefer. They are the Region 1 representative. They are tied Sporting St. Croix Academy earlier on. That was yesterday. ECU from Elkhart, Indiana, they're looking for their very first goal of this tournament. Lost their first game to the Houston Express 1-0, and now trailing the Baltimore Celtics 4-0. Now they get a ball in transition. Piazza trying to set up something into the center, but a shot on goal cannot be attempted by Mr. Vieira. That's Javier Vieira, one of the 3 starting strikers for the Hoosiers, along with Uriel Macias and Nathan Bliley. Here's Harper to kick it deep. Celtics get the ball at midfield. Throw it into Duncan. Try to set something up from the mid. Keeping it in front of him, and some nice fundamental play, getting it to the center of the field, but the fundamental play of keeping possession, give credit a lot to Jonathan Molina, but just could not find Gabriel Quintero for Quintero's second goal of the game. Friedlander, Duncan, Quintero, and Dennison, Jacob Dennison. That's who has scored the goals in today's game. Let's also consider Baltimore is rather deep. First of all, Christopher DiMartino not here. He's injured. And also Christian Beleta and George Nichols, whose nickname I am told is Steve. Anyway, George Steve Nichols, as this header cleared away. Duncan almost had his second goal of the game. And this kick is going to go Arrington wide. Nevertheless, what my point being here is that those players not in action today for Baltimore and I was told before the game that by their manager, Michelle Green, we have a very deep team. And they certainly appear to be that in watching them play. We have a very deep team. And you can only have 18 players on a roster. And, well, we couldn't put them all here in Wilson. Now, in the other part, I was told by the player, by the manager, Myron Cross of the Elkhart, Indiana team, that they had a relatively short roster, although I do see a full set of reserves here, but it was their first time in the National League, and some growing pains perhaps shown here. Celtics with possession again, trying to get the ball forward, but it doesn't appear that it will be the case. The Hoosiers just want the ball on their side of the field, or the other side of the field. They've already got it on their side of the field, but the attacking zone, let's just say it. No subs yet made here in the second half. And there are approximately 30 minutes left of action. We'll see if anyone can get their second goal, or perhaps if ECU can get back into this game, score their first goal of the tournament. Those are the storylines remaining. I was thinking about the Baltimore Celtics. You'd also think, being from Indiana, yes, Notre Dame would be a team that would scout today's game. Although Notre Dame traditionally, they're one of those schools, being a private school, that you look at their roster, and generally you'll see a collegiate roster, and if it's, I don't know, the North Carolina State, let's say, they'll have a lot of players from North Carolina. If you're the Indiana Hoosiers, they'll have a lot of players from Indiana, that sort of thing. But with Notre Dame, while perhaps merely by geography, they would seem to have be a destination spot for players from, say, the Chicagoland area or Indiana, that sort of, Generally speaking, they will have a roster, much like Vanderbilt or a school like that, where the players come from all over. Vanderbilt last week was here when the women were playing, and they had some scouts looking at some of the players. So, and right now with so many scouts that left, an individual effort here in the second half could spark some interest as well, be it a second goal, an initial goal, a display of speed or footwork, what have you. They're being pesky. And I can see, as I'm trying to maintain and see what Elkhart is doing, it appears they are more now going with 2 strikers instead of 3 in an attempt to get more possession. Of course, you're down 4-0. They haven't had much possession. I have unofficially the shot on goal count as, well, it looks like it's going to be 9-0. And that shot, a brilliant save right there by Mr. Gorabal, his best play of the day. An open shot right there from, and I think that was number 7. I'm trying to get the number of the player who took that shot. I could be right. Was it 7 or 17? It's not 7. That's Duncan. It was 17. Forgive me. That was Daniel Hart who had the shot and was prevented from scoring at point-blank range. Now this is 7, Duncan. He has a goal already, and he's trying to get the ball again, but no such luck. And now, potentially an easy goal, and it is. Or is that going to count, or was that with play stoppage? Yeah, it's going to count. A 5-0 advantage, I believe. Yes, and who had the goal there? Number 11, Jonathan Molina, his second goal of the tournament. And we're going to have some substitutions. So Molina scores. His first goal of the game, second of the tournament, 5-0 in favor of the Celtics. Subs right now, as we are about 20 minutes into the game. And, well, after scoring, hey, the day is done for Molina. Coming in is John Nicholas Mueller. Meanwhile, Brandon Stahl has come in. And Nick Binkley comes out for ECU from Elkhart, Indiana. Having a long day today, 5-0. They trail it. And again, I really don't have a shot on goal yet for the players from Elkhart, Indiana. I don't mean to be dismissive or cruel when making that commentary, but this is not necessarily against any one team, but just showing the wonderful talents that the Baltimore Celtics have. Again, Duncan, who wears 7, is near the center of the field. He's the only player who has actually committed yet to a college. He is verbally committed to Loyola in Maryland. There's, of course, in Loyola, Illinois, which I believe was the 1963 NCAA men's basketball champions. The basketball team, I don't know if they still are, but since we're in North Carolina, I seem to recall, and I believe this is the case, that when Stephen Curry was in college at Davidson, Curry was playing a game in December in his junior year, his final year with the Wildcats, and it was Jimmy Patsos, who was the coach at Loyola of the Greyhounds, decided as the 10th shot on goal I have unofficially now for the Celtics. But Patsos decided to put 2 players on Curry at all times. Of course, there was always going to be a guy open after that, but he said, we're going to be remembered as the team that kept Curry scoreless. Who cares about the outcome of the game, was his literal point. Well, I don't know if those exact words, but that's essentially the point he made. And he was correct, and I think Loyola lost by about 30 points. Well, that's where Duncan's going to go to school. Luckily, I don't think he's going to play basketball. Substitution is made. It is Jorge Miranda, that's going out, and USYS who comes in. You can see right now in an attempt just to get possession time, they've gone to more of a traditional formation, has Elkhart. Setting up to the center. This player wearing number 8, Matthew Granitz. Long shot. Kick to the center of the field. And out of bounds. Here we have a substitution for the Hoosiers. Zachary Grew. He'll come in. Coming out, Keegan Shiflett. Shiflett started the game strong. Of course, I believe he was the first player really to handle the ball on one side of the field or another, but it didn't necessarily turn out that way as the game went on for the players from Indiana. Duncan keeping it in. I think they were just trying to clear it, and Duncan has so much size that, well, Dominic Duncan kept it in. It took a fortuitous bounce for the Celtics. It's been that way for them all day. They lead it 5-0. About 20 minutes remaining, roughly. Probably less than 20 minutes remaining. Time you see and the time that I'm keeping is unofficial, of course. And, well, frankly, what the circumstance is that I do not have a view of the screen that you do. I mentioned this before, and, well, it came out where all time, of course, difficult to tell sometimes in soccer. Soccer unusual in that way, in the way it's timed. Collision there, the 2 players, and they're both smiling about it. That's a good thing. But Marcos Hernandez was the player that went down for ECU, and the guy walking away was Jorge Tello. Tello and Duncan had a good rapport in the first half. 5-0. That's a score that the Celtics lead it by. Celtics has a long and storied nickname in basketball circles. You all know about the Boston Celtics, but did you ever hear of the original Celtics? It actually predated the Boston Celtics in basketball's early days. Traveling team. That was a big thing when the original and later New York Celtics came to your town to play. The ball goes out of bounds. And forgive me if I'm repeating myself. Now, that's a case where you see the fence that prevents the ball from going, into the woods, if you will. We're in North Carolina, and I've made this conversation in many of the games, as we're going to see a substitution for the Celtics. Coming in is Drew Green, and Duncan's going to take a rest. Meanwhile, the fair-haired Mason Cross is going to come in for Elkhart, Indiana. Try to see if he can light a spark to get his team, the first goal that they've scored in this tournament. Here comes another attempt. Oh, nice play right there to steal the ball away from Hart. Hart might be the tough luck player of this game for Baltimore, and they haven't had a whole lot of them, but he was robbed of a goal earlier. But now they have a chance again here, although, well, here is Hart saying, you know what, enough of this. I'm trying to score, but the ball taken away from him. Here's an opportunity, maybe. Going off to the side. Pass to the center of the field, no.
Hey, you got three back.
And the 11th shot on goal today unofficially for the Celtics. They lead that category 11-0. Shot was taken there by Jorge Tello. Where's number 22? And our final sixth of the game, I would say, about this time. This shot taken goes over the crossbar. Michael Osewasu. And now we will have that substitution as Cross will come in. And coming out for Elkhart, Indiana, will be Javier Vieira. We'll have a sub here for the Baltimore Celtics very shortly as well. Now, maybe you're tuning in to see a friend or, well, whatever reason you'd like to know more. What is the National League? What is this tournament? I'm going to let the play speak for itself for a minute as I tell you that U.S. Youth Soccer National League games this week kick off the season. Play some more games in Orlando and Las Vegas. National League teams are comprised of the top 80 boys teams from all across the country. There have been plenty of players who played in the National League who have gone on to the FIFA World Cup and the MLS, that sort of thing. And if you're interested, we invite you to go to the website. And at 5-0, and we're going to have a sub here for the Celtics as coming out is Dennison, who has a goal, and coming in is Friedlander, who has a goal. That's what happens when it's 5-0. Jacob Friedlander in, and Jacob Dennison out. One Jacob for another. Well, to learn more about the U.S. Youth Soccer National League, visit usyouthsoccer.org.com, and you'll find all the information that you would like to know. Player falling down was Tello. And we're approaching the 10-minute mark left to play in this game. As I'm keeping my time unofficially on the field and such, and that's somewhat commonplace in soccer. I am reminded, and I was just amazed when I heard this, but in the pre-merger days of the National Football League, and by I mean, when I say pre-merger, really the pro football days before the American Football League. Here Indiana is keeping possession. They've yet to get a shot on goal. Ball goes out of bounds, but we're going to see a sub here for Elkhart, Indiana. Coming in, Nathan Bliley started the game, and coming out, Zachary Grew, I believe. Grew is actually going to stay in, and instead one of the defenders, Logan Wise, is going to come out. Indiana looking for their first goal. Anyway, as I was saying, in the just about the time and keeping it on the field, and sometimes there is a scoreboard, but from the vantage point that we have and in the light with the, shall we say, brightness of the lights on the board, it is not readable until, well, basically we get to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon here in Wilson. So at this time where we're approaching the 2 o'clock hour, it's just not readable, and you keep time on the field. And reminded that that was the way it was done in the early days of pro football prior to 1960. I think I do remember in the so-called greatest game ever played in 1958 that Yankee Stadium did have a clock, but if memory serves, it was the clock had hands, which, you know, is effective enough. I mean, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't even a digital clock. And it was the American Football League that basically said, you know what? Fans ought to know how much time's left in a game. Of course, with extra time, the timing becomes informal in soccer at times, which is the case here. In a close game, it can add an element of mystery and a demand to always push forward. In this one, at 5-0, Maryland, well, you see what happens now. The pace gets a little bit more slower, and, you know, oh, you want to, well, the game's basically been decided. Why don't we? Why don't we kind of see what's going on? Long kick. And again, the Celtics, for instance, right there, as you saw, not that it was a poor play, but Drew Green is kind of okay with letting it go out of bounds. Okay, Maryland will relinquish possession, but this stage of the game, what will it hurt? Now, one of the things it might hurt, I don't know. We could discuss would that be a circumstance where a college recruiter said, I don't like the way he played that. But then again, it may be say, well, that's the smart thing to do. You just don't know. If you're an old football fan, American football fan, you tell me. Was Franco Harris's running style smart, or was it, less than competitive? He's got 4 Super Bowl rings. You tell me.
Push him up, Jay. Push him up. Come on, Mace. You're up. Marcos, call for it. Diagonal. Come on, Zach. Zach, run at 22. Run at 22. Run at it. Take off. Beat it. Beat it. Boy, Danny.
Relax. He's a 16-year-old kid. You're an adult. Just relax. Relax. You got your bench. What's it? It's 5-0 game. Your bench is yapping and doing something. That's how you're gonna get somebody hit on your team, and that's gonna be my fault. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that.
Dylan Kidd and David Caesar are coming into the game, as you may be hearing an argument between the two coaching staffs of the Baltimore Celtics. Coming out is Michael Osewasu. And right now, the officiating staff taking class. And again, I don't know what is being heard, but it has added as I stand here. And although we can discuss sportsmanship or even, who's in the right and who's in the wrong, I will say it has added color to a game that otherwise had, played out and somewhat not as entertaining to watch as it could be. And I hope that I'm not insulting somebody's parent watching on or something like that. That's not personal, but from a competitive standpoint, a 5-0 game is just the drama becomes, can the shutout be broken or can somebody get another goal? It's, I suppose, possible for a miracle comeback, but it's something like asking a football team, American football team, down, say, 35-0 with 5 minutes left in the game. Well, can you come back? Well, that's going to be difficult, obviously. We'll have a kick here from the goalkeeper, Joshua Gorball of ECU. And I will say that, here's another opportunity. No, the ball taken away. Nice play right there by number 3, Trevor Piazza, to knock the ball away from John Nicholas Muller, who had a scoring opportunity there. Gorball really has played a fine second half, even though the score is 5-0. He's made several nice athletic saves. And again, we're in that point of the game right now where we're trying to retrieve the ball from off the field. And with the score 5-0, sometimes you take just a little bit more time doing that than if it was a tie game. And I have officially maybe about 3 minutes left with the corner kick. And Goal kick, excuse me. Goal kick. And so we have another goal kick from the corner. How's that? Told my terminology is incorrect. I'm also told the score is 5-0. However, gosh darn it, I'm an American. Elkhart trying to get one last rush coming out there. If not, the one thing that kind of may prohibit them is that they're in, and you can see this, it's the sort of part where of the field where the pitch is a bit torn up. And so can they get the speed needed for that one shot on goal that could break the shutout, break the whitewash? And that, I hear a long whistle as it goes out of bounds, but I don't hear another 3. I thought we're approaching the end of the game. Time will be short. And I'm standing next to the thing. Is any extra time going to be added, or? We're unknown. So we're at the final stages of the game. Nothing, Maryland on top. Let's give you who had the goals here, as I realize that so I'm letting sort of the play, doing the Ray Scott thing and letting sort of the play talk for itself. But the things I can add, here are the goals that have been scored. The first one from Jacob Friedlander, the second one to the Loyola Maryland commit, Dominic Duncan. The third by Gary Brielle Quintero. The fourth by Jacob Dennison early on in this half. And the fifth coming from Jonathan Molina, the striker scoring his second goal of the tournament. Molina born around when Mark McGuire was chasing Roger Maris on August 19th, 1998. I think he was about 2 weeks away from breaking the record. Kick goes wide. Goalkeepers today in the first half. The Baltimore Celtics employed Nicholas Deschon, and he'll be the winner, I guess. And Alexander Harper came on in the second half. Joshua Gorball has gone the route. Well, here's a goal kick from the corner. Nice save right there, and I think I'm going to give the first shot on goal, let's say, for the boys from the Hoosier State. So Harper with a leaping grab of that ball in the final stages of the game. Here he's going to punt it away. What happened to Tony Miola's chances to join the Jets as a punter? I don't think he made it, but how far did he go? There's a question. Baltimore with the ball and now possession the other end of the field in their final stages of the game. Could Quintero get the second goal of the game? Ball goes out of bounds. Whistle blows, and so we'll have a kick here. And that is going to be the game. Our final score today, 5-0 in favor of Baltimore Celtic, 98-99. The scores came today, the goals from the following players in the first half of the game. Jacob Friedlander, sort of a ground ball kick in the early going. Then the future Loyola Greyhound Dominic Duncan scored to make it 2-0. Third goal came from the head of Gabriel Quintero. Jacob Dennison's toe earlier in this half scored the fourth goal. And the fifth goal was scored by Jonathan Molina. Molina now with 2 goals for Baltimore in this tournament. These goals were all scored against goalkeeper Joshua Gorball. In the first half, Nicholas Deschamps started. It wasn't until the second half that a save was made by one of the goalkeepers for the Celtics, and that came from Alexander Harper. So, and I have unofficially shots on goal as 12-1 in this game. So the final, once again, Baltimore Celtic 98-99, Baltimore Celtic 98-99, 5, and ECU 98-99 Maroon, nothing. I'm Marky Bilson, and you've been watching the Turbo Sports Network.